"Grandma, tell us about Grandpa again." Little Emma tugged on my sleeve, her bright eyes sparkling with curiosity. My other grandchildren, 5 of them, all gathered around my rocking chair on the porch, echoed her request with eager nods and pleading faces. "Please, Grandma, tell us how you and Grandpa met." I smiled, my wrinkled hand reaching up to touch the locket around my neck. Inside was a small painting of a young man with kind eyes and a strong jaw, my beloved Henry. Gone now for 3 years, but still with me in every memory, every heartbeat. "All right, my darlings," I said, settling back in my chair. "But this isn't just a love story. It's a story about seeing with the heart instead of the eyes, about courage and truth. And it starts with something I was told was a curse, but turned out to be the greatest blessing of my life." I looked at each of their young faces, so full of innocence and acceptance. They'd never known a world where I was anything but their beloved grandmother. They'd never seen the looks, heard the whispers, felt the cruelty that shaped my youth. "Let me tell you about the day your grandfather saw me, really saw me, and changed everything. My name was Clara Montgomery, and when I was 21 years old, I believed I was cursed by the devil himself. You see, children, I was born with eyes that didn't match. My left eye was brown, like rich earth after the rain, but my right eye was green, like new spring leaves. The doctors called it heterochromia. The townspeople called it the devil's mark. I lived in a small town called Redemption Creek, Montana Territory. It was 1879, and folks in those parts were very superstitious. They believed that a person with 2 different colored eyes was marked by evil, that I could curse crops, sour milk, or bring bad luck just by looking at someone. My parents loved me, God rest their souls. Mama always said my eyes were special, that they were God's way of making me unique. Papa would kiss my forehead and tell me I was his little rainbow girl. But both of them died when I was 12. Papa from a mining accident, Mama from grief shortly after. I had no other family, no money, nowhere to go. Pastor Edmund Hartley and his wife Constance took me in, but not out of kindness, out of duty, and they made sure I knew it every single day. "The Lord commands us to care for orphans, even those marked with peculiarities," Pastor Hartley would say in his booming Sunday voice. I became their servant. I cleaned their large house from top to bottom. I cooked their meals. I washed their clothes. I tended their garden. I worked from before sunrise until long after sunset, 7 days a week. And through it all, they reminded me constantly that I should be grateful, that no one else would take in a girl with devil eyes, that I was lucky they were Christian enough to look past my affliction. Mrs. Hartley was the worst. She was a cold, mean woman who took pleasure in making me feel small. "Don't look directly at people, Clara. Your eyes frighten them. Keep your head down. A girl like you should know her place," she'd hiss at me. She made me wear my bonnet pulled low over my face whenever we went into town. I wasn't allowed to attend church services with the regular congregation. I had to sit in a small room in the back, listening through the door. She said my presence would make people uncomfortable. The other young people in town were even crueler. There were 3 girls in particular, Sarah, Margaret, and Elizabeth, daughters of wealthy families. They were everything I wasn't, pretty, popular, dressed in fine clothes, and loved by everyone. They delighted in tormenting me. Whenever they saw me in town, they'd whisper loud enough for me to hear. "There's that devil-eyed girl. My mama says she's cursed. I heard she can hex you if you look into her eyes. That's why she keeps her head down. Who would ever want to marry something like that? She'll die alone for sure." Their words cut deeper than any knife, because deep down, I believed them. I believed I was cursed, unlovable, wrong. By the time I was 21, I'd accepted my fate. I would work for the Hartleys until I was too old to be useful. Then I'd probably die alone in some poorhouse. No one would ever love me. No one would see past my eyes to the person underneath. That's what I believed. Until that Sunday in June when everything changed. It was a beautiful summer morning. The church was packed because Pastor Hartley had announced there would be a special visitor, a wealthy rancher from the Northern Territories who was passing through town. I was in my usual spot, in the small back room, listening through the crack in the door. I could hear the excitement in the sanctuary. All the young women were whispering and giggling, hoping to catch the eye of this mysterious wealthy stranger. Then I heard the heavy doors of the church open, footsteps, and a hush fell over the congregation. Through the crack, I could just barely see him. He was tall, very tall, with broad shoulders and sun-darkened skin from years of working outdoors. He wore fine clothes, not fancy but well-made, and he carried himself with quiet confidence. His hair was dark, and even from a distance I could see he was handsome in a rugged, weathered way. Pastor Hartley greeted him warmly, his voice dripping with the false sweetness he used for important people. "Mr. Henry Douglas, what an honor to have you in our humble church. Please, come sit in the front pew." Henry Douglas. Even his name sounded strong. The service began, but I couldn't concentrate on Pastor Hartley's sermon. I kept watching through the crack, watching this stranger who seemed so different from anyone I'd ever seen. There was something about the way he held himself. Not proud, but not apologetic either. Like he knew exactly who he was and didn't need anyone's approval. After the sermon, Pastor Hartley announced there would be a social gathering in the church hall, so we can properly welcome our distinguished guest. I started to slip away to the kitchen to help prepare refreshments, but Mrs. Hartley grabbed my arm. "You stay out of sight," she hissed. "We have important people here. I don't want you embarrassing us with those eyes." So I stayed in my little room, preparing tea and cookies that I'd carry out on trays but never be seen carrying. I could hear the laughter and chatter from the hall. I could hear Sarah, Margaret, and Elizabeth giggling and competing for Mr. Douglas's attention. "My father owns the largest store in town, Mr. Douglas. I can play the piano beautifully, Mr. Douglas. Perhaps you'd like to hear. My mother makes the best apple pie in the territory, Mr. Douglas. You simply must come to dinner." I felt a familiar ache in my chest. Not jealousy exactly, just loneliness. A deep, hollow feeling of being on the outside of life, watching through cracks and doorways while everyone else lived in the light. I was arranging cookies on a tray when I heard footsteps approaching my door. Then Mrs. Hartley's sharp voice, "Mr. Douglas, you don't want to go in there. That's just the storage room." "Actually, ma'am, I was looking for the person who made these remarkable cookies, best I've had in years. I wanted to offer my compliments." My heart stopped. He wanted to thank me? Oh, well, that was just our servant girl. She's not important. Now let me introduce you to... But the door opened, and there he stood, Henry Douglas, wealthy rancher, looking right at me. I immediately dropped my gaze, pulling my bonnet lower. My heart was racing. Please don't let him see my eyes. Please don't let him see... "Miss," he said gently, "those cookies were truly exceptional. Did you make them?" "Yes, sir," I whispered, keeping my head down. "Then you have a remarkable talent. Thank you." He should have left then, but he didn't. He stayed in the doorway, and I could feel him looking at me. "What's your name?" he asked. "Clara, sir. Clara Montgomery." "It's nice to meet you, Clara." His voice was kind, genuinely kind. Would you look at me, please?" My blood turned to ice. I'd rather not, sir." "Why not?" Mrs. Hartley's voice cut in, sharp and nervous. "Mr. Douglas, she has a condition. It's better if she doesn't—" "But I asked Clara, ma'am, not you." The firmness in his voice surprised us both. Mrs. Hartley made a small sound of indignation, but said nothing more. I stood there, trembling, my hands clutching my apron. What could I say? That I was cursed? That my eyes frightened people? That I'd learned to hide because the world couldn't bear to look at me? Please, he said again, softer this time. I'd like to see your face. Something in his voice made me brave, or maybe just tired of hiding. Slowly, my hands shaking, I pushed back my bonnet and lifted my head. And I looked at him. One brown eye, one green eye. The devil's mark, they called it, the curse. I waited for the reaction I always got, the shock, the disgust, the quick look away. But Henry Douglas didn't look away. He looked at me, really looked at me, and his face broke into the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. "My God," he whispered, "your eyes are extraordinary." I couldn't breathe. Was he mocking me? "They're different colors," I said, my voice barely audible. "I know. They're stunning, like looking at earth and forest at the same time. I've never seen anything so beautiful." Behind him, I could hear gasps from the church hall. People were gathering, watching. I could feel their stares, hear their whispers starting. "Mr. Douglas," Pastor Hartley's voice was strained. "Perhaps we should—" But Henry wasn't listening. He was still looking at me, and now he took a step into the small room. "Clara Montgomery," he said, "would you do me the great honor of allowing me to court you?" The world stopped. Court me? This man, this wealthy, handsome, respected man, wanted to court me? From the doorway, I heard Sarah gasp. "What? Her? But she's just a servant, and her eyes—" "Her eyes are perfect," Henry said firmly, still not looking away from me. "Just like the rest of her." I was shaking so hard I thought I might fall down. This couldn't be real. It had to be some kind of cruel joke. I don't understand. Why would you— I'm nothing, nobody. I'm cursed." "You're not cursed, Clara. You're unique, special, and I'd be honored if you'd let me get to know you better." Then, right there in front of Pastor Hartley, Mrs. Hartley, and half the congregation who had crowded around to watch, Henry Douglas got down on one knee. "Clara Montgomery," he said, "I know this is sudden. I know we just met, but I believe when you see something rare and precious, you don't let it slip away. Would you do me the honor of accepting my courtship, of giving me a chance to prove that I see you, truly see you, and find you absolutely beautiful?" Tears were streaming down my face, but these weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of confusion, shock, and something I barely recognized because I'd felt it so rarely— hope. But fear was stronger. "No," I heard myself say. "No, I can't. This isn't real. You don't know me. You don't know what people say about me, how they look at me. You're just being kind, and I appreciate it, but I can't." I turned away, pulling my bonnet back down, trying to hide my face, trying to hide the tears, trying to hide the part of me that desperately wanted to say yes, but was too broken to believe anyone could truly want me. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "Please go. Please just go and forget about me." There was a long silence. I was sure he would leave, sure he'd realize what a mistake he'd made, asking for a cursed girl with devil's eyes. But then I heard him stand, and when he spoke, his voice wasn't hurt or angry. It was steady, determined. "Pastor Hartley," he said, "I'd like to address your congregation right now. I suppose it wasn't a request." I heard footsteps, movement, whispers spreading through the crowd. Against my better judgment, I followed, staying at the back of the room, watching as Henry Douglas walked to the front of the church sanctuary and turned to face everyone. The church was packed, every pew full, people standing along the walls, and they were all staring at him with curiosity and confusion. Henry stood there for a moment, looking at each face. Then he began to speak. "My name is Henry Douglas. Most of you know I own one of the largest cattle ranches in the Northern Territories. I'm wealthy, successful, respected." He paused. "But what you don't know is where I came from, what I was before all this." The room was completely silent. 30 years ago, I was born in a small town in Texas. My father was James Douglas, and James Douglas was a thief, a con man, and eventually a murderer. Gasps rippled through the congregation. My father robbed banks. He cheated honest people out of their savings. And one night, when I was 7 years old, he killed a man during a robbery. They hanged him for it in the town square, made me watch, wanted to teach all the children what happens to criminals. I could see people shifting uncomfortably in their pews. After that, nobody would look at me. Nobody would talk to me. I was James Douglas's son, the murderer's boy. They said I had bad blood, that I'd grow up to be just like him. The other children threw rocks at me, called me killer's spawn. Shopkeepers wouldn't serve my mother. We had to leave town because no one would give us work or sell us food. His voice was steady, but I could hear the old pain underneath. We moved 6 times in 5 years, same thing every place. As soon as people learned who my father was, we were driven out. My mother worked herself to death trying to keep us alive. She died when I was 12, and I was alone. He looked around the room at all the fine, respectable people who had been so eager to meet the wealthy Mr. Douglas just an hour ago. I was judged for something I didn't do, hated for blood I didn't choose, cast out because of who my father was, not who I was. For years I believed what they told me, that I was worthless, that I was cursed, that no one would ever see me as anything but a criminal's son. Now his eyes found mine across the room, held 'em. But one person did. An old rancher named Samuel Cooper found me half-starved on his property. I expected him to chase me off like everyone else. Instead, he asked me one question. "Are you your father, boy, or are you yourself?" Henry's voice grew stronger. I told him I was myself, and he said, "Then that's all I need to know. What your father did don't matter to me. I judge a man by his own actions, not his bloodline." He took me in, taught me ranching, left me his property when he died, gave me a chance when no one else would. He took a step forward, his gaze sweeping the congregation. "Samuel Cooper taught me that it's easy to judge people for things they can't control, the color of their eyes, the family they were born into, the circumstances of their birth. But it takes courage, real courage, to look past those things and see the person underneath. Clara Montgomery was born with 2 different colored eyes. She didn't choose that, just like I didn't choose my father. But you've all decided she's cursed because of it. You've made her believe she's worthless. You've hidden her away, treated her like she's less than human, denied her the basic dignity of being seen." I was crying openly now, unable to stop. "Well, I'm here to tell you that you're wrong, dead wrong, because when I looked into Clara's eyes, those beautiful, unique, extraordinary eyes, I didn't see a curse. I saw kindness. I saw strength. I saw someone who has endured years of cruelty and rejection and is still gentle enough to make cookies for strangers, still brave enough to lift her head when asked, still has a heart that hasn't been completely broken by the hardness of the world." His voice broke slightly. "I spent my whole childhood being told I was worthless because of my father's sins. I know what it feels like to be judged for something you can't control. I know what it's like to hide who you are because the world can't accept you. And I will not stand by and watch another person suffer that way when I have the power to do something about it." He turned to face me fully now and got back down on one knee, right there in front of everyone.
Clara Montgomery, I'm not asking you to marry me today. I'm just asking for a chance to prove that someone sees you for who you really are, a chance to show you that you deserve to be loved and cherished and treated with dignity, a chance to help you see yourself the way I see you, as someone absolutely beautiful, inside and out. The whole church was silent except for my sobbing. I can't promise I'll be perfect, he continued. I can't promise this will be easy, but I can promise you this. I will never, ever let anyone make you feel less than the extraordinary woman you are. I will spend every day trying to earn your trust, and I will be honored, truly honored, if you'd give me that chance. He held out my hand. What do you say, Clara? Will you let me try? I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. My whole body was shaking. For 21 years I'd been told I was cursed. For 21 years I'd been hidden away, made to feel ashamed of something I couldn't control. For 21 years I'd believed I would never be loved. And here was this man, this strong, successful, respected man, telling an entire church full of people that I was worthy, that I was beautiful, that I deserved to be seen, not in spite of my eyes, but including them, all of me. I thought about saying no again, about running away, about protecting myself from what seemed too good to be true. But then I thought about what he'd said, about his father, about being judged for things he couldn't control, about the person who gave him a chance when no one else would. Maybe we were both broken in different ways. Maybe we both knew what it felt like to be cast out, to be deemed unworthy, to be judged by things beyond our control. Maybe that's why he could see me when no one else could. Slowly, my legs shaking so badly I could barely walk, I made my way through the crowd. People parted for me, staring. I could see Sarah and Margaret and Elizabeth with their mouths hanging open in shock. I stopped in front of Henry, still on one knee, his hand extended, his eyes full of hope and kindness and something that looked an awful lot like love.
I'm so afraid this isn't real, that you'll change your mind, that you'll see what everyone else sees and realize you made a mistake. Then let me spend every day proving you wrong, he said gently. Let me show you what I see. Give me that chance, Clara, please. I looked into his eyes, and for the first time in my life, I saw myself reflected back as something beautiful. I placed my hand in his. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I'll give you a chance. The smile that broke across his face was like the sun coming out after years of rain. He stood, still holding my hand, and turned to the congregation. You all just witnessed something important, he said, his voice ringing through the church. You witnessed the beginning of something true and good and real, and I truly hope that some of you will learn from this, will learn to look past the surface and see the person underneath. Will learn that what makes someone different isn't what makes them less, it's what makes them special. He looked at Pastor and Mrs. Hartley. Clara will be leaving your employment today. She'll be coming to my ranch as my honored guest, and later, God willing, as my wife. You will compensate her for every day of work she's done for you over the past 9 years. Every single day. Pastor Hartley's face went red. Now, see here. I wasn't asking, Henry said calmly. I'm telling you. You've had free labor from this girl for 5 years. You've treated her like property instead of a person. You'll pay her what you owe her, or I'll make sure everyone in this territory knows exactly what kind of Christians you really are. Mrs. Hartley looked like she might faint. Henry turned back to me, his voice soft again. Clara, go get your things, whatever belongs to you. We're leaving. I don't have much, I said. Just a few dresses, some books my mother left me. Then get them and say goodbye to this place. You're never coming back here as a servant. You're never being treated as less than again." "And that, my darlings," I said to my wide-eyed grandchildren, "is how your grandfather and I met." "Wow," breathed Emma. "Grandpa was so brave." "He was," I agreed, "the bravest man I ever knew." "What happened next, Grandma?" asked Jacob, the oldest. "Well, your grandfather took me to his ranch. It was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen. Rolling hills, thousands of cattle, a big house with glass windows and wooden floors. He gave me my own room, treated me like an honored guest, never pressured me for anything." I smiled, remembering. "He courted me properly for 6 months, took me on picnics, taught me to ride horses, sat with me for hours just talking, showed me that I was worth patience and respect and genuine affection." "And then you got married?" "Then we got married, right there on the ranch, under the biggest oak tree you ever saw, and we had 53 beautiful years together." My voice caught slightly. "Your grandfather passed 3 years ago, as you know, but not a day goes by that I don't think about him, about the man who saw me when no one else could, who taught me that being different isn't being less, that what others call a curse can be a blessing." I touched my locket again. He used to say my eyes were his favorite thing about me, said the brown one reminded him of home and the green one reminded him of hope. Said together they were perfect, just like us. Little Emma climbed into my lap and looked up at me with her bright blue eyes she got from her father, my son. "Grandma, you have the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen." I kissed her forehead, tears sliding down my wrinkled cheeks. "Thank you, sweet girl. Your grandfather would be so happy to hear you say that." I looked around at all my grandchildren, these beautiful children who had never known a world where I was anything but loved and accepted. "Remember this story," I told them. "Remember that it's not how the world sees you that matters, it's how you see yourself. And sometimes it takes just one person, one brave, kind person to help you see the truth. Your grandfather was that person for me. He didn't just save me from a life of servitude, he saved me from a life of believing I was worthless. He taught me that I deserved to be loved, that my differences made me special, not cursed." I wiped my eyes and smiled. "And that, my darlings, is the greatest gift anyone can give another person, the gift of being truly seen, truly accepted, truly loved." As the sun set over the ranch your grandfather built, the ranch where we raised our children and where you've all grown up, I held my grandchildren close and thanked God for the day a wealthy rancher walked into a church and saw a 17-year-old servant girl with mismatched eyes, not as cursed, not as broken, not as less than, but as beautiful, as worthy, as loved. My name is Clara Douglas. I'm 80 years old, and I have one brown eye and one green eye, and they're perfect, just like my grandfather always said.